do want to give you a few final thoughts as I leave this extension government employee work that I'm doing here. So, but first of all, let me share with you a few stories. And I know most of y'all, some of y'all have heard these stories before, but bear with me if you have. The first one I'm going to mention is entitled Bats in the Crawl Space. I've been out, was actually working on the old campground cemetery down here with some master gardeners, and I come back into the office. A lady called me up. She said, I got bats in my crawl space, which is a little strange because bats, to get going, bats have to fall down, and you don't hardly ever see them below about 6 foot. They want to fall that far to take off to fly, so you just don't see them in a crawl space. But she said she had bats in the crawl space, so I told her how to control bats in the crawl space. She said, I can't do all that stuff. I said, I'm 80 years old. I went, okay, get somebody to do it for you, you know. And she said, well, I've got the heating guy and the electrical guy here, and they're not going to work with those bats down there. Can you come do something? So I said, okay, I'll come up there. And drove up there and walked around there, and the electrical guy and the heating guy was standing there. And I said, I understand y'all got bats in the crawl space. And they said, yeah, we can see them. So just stick your head in that hole. And on the back side, they had knocked a hole through the underpinning there, and you could look all the way down to the end. They said, you'll see them down there. And I looked down there. Sure enough, there's a little thing hanging on the wall down there at the end of the crawl space. And I thought, what am I going to do about this, you know? And I said, well, y'all got a box or something? And they handed me the box that the meter come in. Folded together, had a little crack there in it, you know. And so I took that box, I got under that house, and I started crawling all the way down there. And I got within about, and it didn't move at all, you know. And I didn't know what, I was going to grab it and stick it in the box, I think. I reckon what I was thinking. But anyway, I got to about 3 foot from it, and I realized that thing's got feathers on it. So I knew it wasn't a bat. And what it was a bird had managed to get underneath the crawl space, fly around, land on the side until it died, and then just dried out. And it was nothing but just a bunch of feathers. I mean, just lightweight as could be, you know. So I grabbed that bunch of feathers and I stuck it in the box. And I folded the box together and I come crawling back out, you know, and told the guy, I said, I got him. I said, y'all can go back to work now. And the guy, he was real dubious, you know. You got that thing in that box? I said, yeah. He said, let me see that thing. So I just handed him the box, you know. He took it, shook it, I reckon, wake him up or whatever. And when he did, those feathers just back and forth. Blah, 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 blah. His eyes got big. He handed it back to me, and I drove off. So he's still somewhere, the electrical guy out there is thinking that I went underneath there and grabbed a bat and took it out from under the crawl space. Speaking about bats, I had this question one time. A lady called up. She said, do vampire bats mark their territory? Hey, what do you mean mark their territory? That's, you know, like a cat. I was thinking like a dog, you know, mark his territory. Okay. Man, I don't know, but let me ask you a question. I said, why do you need to know? I said, there's no vampire bats within 1,000 miles of here. I think Texas is the closest vampire bats we have around here. And she said, well, I've got blood and liquid on the outside of my patio. And said, I thought maybe a vampire bat was out there marking his territory. I thought, you know, just some animals got in a fight there on the ground and slung blood over on the wall, you know. I said, how high is this blood? You know, just curious. She said, well, I'm on the second story. It's up here about 15 foot high. Let me come out there and see what's going on, which was a fairly routine thing when I got there. Look, it was actually moths. You know how the scales will come off the wings at times when they brush up against the house, and there was a patio light there that was attracting moths, and moths were back and forth, and all that red scales off their wings was back and forth. And when they'd hit the patio door, I reckon they were leaving some kind of juice there, and so it looked like something had marked the territory there. But anyway, sort of routine. But I've always got this impression right here, thinking of a little vampire bat, marking his territory. Share another incident that happened with me fairly early in my career. A lady called me up back when I was doing home visits, and she said, I've got a problem with this tree, and so I'd like for you to take a look at it. And it wasn't obvious from the description what was going on. She said it was just looking bad or whatever. And so I drove out there and pulled up into the yard and walked up to the door, and there was a storm door there, or screen or storm door there. She was on the other side in the sort of a foyer vegetable kind of thing there, that she was talking in French on this phone. You know, she just motioned for me to come in, and of course I like the sound of French. You know, I love women talking in French. It is sensual, sexual to me. I do. Serious. I know the reason for that too, but I won't go there. Anyway, I was listening to her talking French, and then she'd switch over to English every once with call waiting, she's talking French, whatever. And then she hung up the phone. She said, let's go to the bedroom. And she took off. I'm always supposed to be looking at plants, is what I was thinking. But I had a choice. I could either follow her or I could stand there in the entranceway. I could have left, I reckon. I didn't think about that at the time. So anyway, I decided I would follow her, and so we went back there. And a nice house, by the way, and it was, the bedroom was something like out of Architectural Digest, a beautiful bedroom, and we stepped in there, carpet, deep carpet. And sure enough, she wanted me to look at this hickory tree outside the window there. And looked at the hickory tree, and it was turning yellow in fall of the year, like hickory trees do, And I said, ma'am, this is just normal routine coloration for hickory trees here. I said, this not unusual, and so I left, and I was thinking, she might be a little bit dense, here she is in her late 20s, early 30s, and she hadn't never noticed the hickory tree turning yellow. Didn't think she may have been raised somewhere else with that French knowledge of French that she had. But anyway, I was saying she sure was a dense one, and years later, though, I got to thinking about it, and as far as I know, she had she made no indication she had anything else on her mind besides that hickory tree there. But I realized years later that if she had, I wouldn't have noticed. I wouldn't have known, women do these little things they think are hints, and they're not hints at all, as far as the man's concerned. So she may be somewhere saying, I had him all the way back to the bedroom, and he had no clue. He's just somebody really dense, So who's the dense one? Hey, this is what would Emily Post do? I went out to this lady's house one day, and we were out in the yard area, actually back towards the barn area too, and had boots on that those boots would leave mud. You'd wipe them off best you could, but they'd be mud up in the crack. Every once in a while, mud would fall out in the house. I hated them boots. But anyway, was out there walking around and outside, and actually she invited me in. So I was going to go in there so I could clean my boots up best I could. Wish I'd took them off now, but anyway, I cleaned them up best I could, and we went on into the house there and stepped into the kitchen, and I looked around, and there was a little piece of mud on the floor, like that. Doggone it. I reached down and grabbed it up like that. Then I noticed this little dog running around there, and this mud felt a little bit sticky. I thought, there's a possibility I'm standing here in this lady's house holding doggy-doo in my hand, It was a little hard, I was like, well, maybe it's a chew toy for the dog, where's the trash can? That's what I was thinking. There wasn't a trash can in sight like that. And I've looked since in Emily Post's writings, and she does not address that topic at all. We have a thing that occasionally we run into with extension, and behind the scenes, we call it menopause mites, which is not a good word for it, but it's better than what the doctors call it, delusions of parasitism. And it's fairly common, really. I've probably run into it about 14 times. And the main thing I can try to do is try to convince people not to use as much pesticides, because they feel like bugs are just eating them up, and they're using pesticides left and right, up and down. We had one lady one time, she actually traveled to Ireland and found some DDT and treated her pantyhose with DDT to kill these bugs that she thought was bothering her, which was, at the extent that it can get to, or even, DDT is not that harmful to humans. I've seen people have 7. One lady, she had 7 in her car, where she'd put her feet into that when she got in her car. She put her feet into that before she got out of the car, had one she'd step into at the house to go into the house, And it's actually, what it is stress, is people's reaction to stress. And it does happen to postmenopausal women more so than it does to men. Probably out of the 14, the 14 cases I've run into, probably 12 were female. There's some things I run into I hadn't figured out for sure. But anyway, this is a situation here where it was both the husband and the wife were convinced that something was biting them, something was bothering them, and they actually asked me to come to the house and look around, which I did. A lot of times what they'll do is they'll bring Scotch tape. They'll grab stuff with Scotch tape and stick it to a piece of paper, and you get these 30 or 40 pieces of Scotch tape stuck to a paper, and that, in fact, I asked them to at times. I said, look, when you feel one bite, just take a piece of Scotch tape and stick it there, stick it on a piece of paper, bring it in, we'll look at it under the scope. Trying to convince people that that's not what's going on. But anyway, this guy, he asked me to come by, so I went up there and we went in and we looked around. There was dead bugs everywhere. I mean, there wasn't no live bugs in the house. They had treated enough times till everything was dead. Yet he said, I tell you what I want you to do. So I want you to sit here and just wait with me about 30 minutes and see if you feel anything. I thought, okay, you know, so I sat there in his house, you know, and a few minutes his wife was over there, you know. Then he was, then she was, you know, like that. And after about 5 minutes, I thought to myself, he looked at me and said, you feeling anything yet? And I thought to myself, if I stay here, I'm going to, you know. Psychologically. But anyway, we do have a procedure we go through to try to help these people, and I think I have helped some of them, and particularly the ones that can understand that it is stress is what they're going through here anyway. This story, this happened here in Cabarrus County. I'm not going to give town names, but it's one of the towns here in Cabarrus County. Went to this lady's house, and as soon as I drove up in the yard, I realized I was on 2 security cameras. I saw one security camera back over. She had cut out a little door fiber to spruce, and the camera was coming out that way. Another camera coming from another way. So I was on 2 cameras when I drove up in the yard there. And she said, I got a neighbor where we used to live. Said, he's coming over here and he's really aggravating me and he's giving me all kinds of problems. Said, and the police won't do a thing about it. And I said, well, that's you know, sympathetic, whatever. Try to be sympathetic, I reckon. But anyway, I said, what kind of damage is he doing? She said, well, he sprayed something on my red tips. And I looked at red tips. I said, that's Entomosporium leaf spot on red tips. That's happening all over the county. I said, photinia, you couldn't show me a photinia that didn't have a leaf spot. And by the way, these are not the same pictures. I didn't take these pictures at the time. I just grabbed them off the internet to sort of, so I could remember what I'm talking about here, you know, as I get older. Anyway, she said, well, come over here and look at this. And we went and we looked at some phlox. And she said, anybody want to guess what the phlox had on it? Mildew, yeah, like everybody else's phlox. Had powdery mildew on the phlox. And she opened up a holly and the interior leaves on the holly were dropping off. I said, ma'am, that's just not the way. I've seen damage, by the way, where people have sprayed things on other people's property. And you get some damage when you do that. I've seen what I thought was Clorox, and seen another time I thought the guy had used brake fluid on somebody else's property. I mean, it's not like you're going to get powdered mildew on phlox or whatever. And it went around and we looked at this tractor seat, and it wasn't cracked as bad as this one right here. She said, he sprayed something on this tractor seat and made it crack. You know, she was storing it outside in the sun. And I just aged, it got like that. You know, we went all the way around the yard, look at one that thing after another till we got to the very back there. And somebody had cut through her fence, left a hole about like this, and come up behind one of her security cameras and disassembled the security camera. So, yeah, she wasn't completely crazy, was she? So, anyway, sort of an interesting thing there. This is one, this is an actual picture here I took. Guy said, I've got a problem on my pasture, and went down there and he said, I don't believe he had UFOs, but he said, I think a UFO landed down there. This was a picture, I took it on the way back out, just looking down across the pasture here, and this is sort of what I saw on the way in. Then we got up to it, and this is what it looked like right there. You can see the grass here was dead in sort of a semicircle area right around there. That's his little kid he picked up on the way down in there. So he was saying, it looks like a UFO, and yeah, it looks like a UFO. It wasn't a UFO. I finally figured it out on that, but that was a pretty hard one there. So anyway, I have had a real good time with Extension. I'm going to mention another one. Story I thought about this morning. I said, you know, I told Scott about it the other day, and I said, I might as well share this with you too. This was over towards Lake Norman, actually. The landscapers, a number of the landscapers here in the county will do jobs over in Lake Norman, and sometimes they ask me to go over there and evaluate plants or look at plants or tell them what's going wrong with plants at some of their job sites, and I'll do that. This particular time I went in, and when I come off I knew it was a rich neighborhood to begin with, and then I come off the street, there was a security gate there. Oh, it was taller than this room here, and wide, big iron decorative security gate with big rock work on each side, you know, and you punch a code in, the gate opens up like that, and drove down in there and went across. It was paved driveway down there across couple of ornamental pools, ponds down there. The guy over here at Harrisburg had built, Ponders had built those. Can't remember who the landscaper was right now, but I went on down there and pulled over next to the house there and got out, and the house wasn't as impressive as you might have thought from everything you'd seen so far. And I looked over there and I thought, well, that's got to be the guest house because of the way the driveway went. I said, the guest house looks better than the main house here. And in fact, the guest house looked like it was about a $350,000 home, 3-story, huge, beautiful rock work that went up the 3-story. It was a beautiful house over there, and I thought, that's sort of interesting. The guest house is better than the main house, you know. Anyway, the landscaper come up and we started looking at plants, and all the way around here and there looking at plants. Finally went around the corner of that building, and it turned out I'd pulled up and parked at the dog kennel. So I've been to some impressive houses, been to some different places. Charlotte Motor Speedway, I was over there with the maintenance guys. We took a couple of laps around one time with a state car. That was before the governor ever did it. So I've had a lot of experiences, a lot of fun with it, meeting a lot of people over that time. So it's been a good trip.